It's a huge issue for us because we have contact with so many people. There are nearly 5,000 gyms franchisees out there, and far more than that if you count employees and so forth. And it's an issue that comes up all the time. People are failing, people getting complaints, people who are not making the income they should. Mental health comes up again and again and again. So it's a major focus for us.
Now, you've had the business, or Gyms Group, has for 30 years in essence.
Yeah.
Did you notice it back then at all? Is it just something more recently that's been sort of coming up more often?
We're more aware of it more recently. I don't know whether that's because there's more mental health problems or because people are more free to talk about it than they used to be. It's actually brought up a lot. Like sometimes if a franchisee gets too many complaints and they think I should knock them off, and they say, well, it's affecting my mental health, and if you really cared about my welfare, you would. So that's in a sense using the mental health thing. Mind you, what I say to them is, yes, look, I understand getting complaints does provoke anxiety. On the other hand, if we let customer service go and you don't have enough work and you can't feed your family, that's also going to create anxiety. So it's not as simple as that.
So what is stuff that Gyms Group do for franchisees in regards to this sort of issue?
The biggest thing that we've found is having a sense of connection, of community. For example, when we first started off in gyms, we just used to give people leads, and if they had a problem, they'd ring us up. And we quickly found out that that wasn't enough, that what we needed to do was run meetings. So the franchisees who were near to my office used to come in regularly, and we have meetings in my lounge room initially, and they were pretty happy. The further we got away, the less happy they were. And we realized that actually meeting regularly with other franchisees is very important in creating a sense of community. In fact, so important that when franchisees don't have meetings, they tend to fail. Our first interstate franchisees mostly failed, and we think one of the main reasons is there was no meetings. We've actually worked out how many meetings to have. There's a figure, and it's 8 meetings a year, because we found out that about once every 6 weeks is optimum. More than that doesn't help. Less than that, the less meetings they have, the less happy they are. So it's an opportunity, obviously, to learn about the business, and it's also an opportunity to connect with other people. Because what will happen is somebody will be in business and will be going through a really hard time because they've got a really difficult client, or their machine's broken down, or something's gone wrong, or they've done a quote which has ended up working for nothing. There's all kinds of things that go wrong in business. We find that if it's other franchisees they talk to and they say, oh yeah, that happened to me, so and so, and this is how I dealt with it, and it's fine, you just get through it, and you'll make $5,000 next week and you'll be okay. That relationship building. And then when they come to meetings, they actually tend to build bonds, and so they'll ring each other in the evenings. That's actually far more important than we thought. And the same thing with contact. In the beginning, we just used to say, if you've got a problem, ring us, which is great. That's nice to have an advice. But we found that there were some franchisors who were doing so much better than others, and we actually looked at what are they doing that's different. Now, we used to talk about doing business reviews, like half a day a year. No effect at all. It didn't make franchisees happier, didn't make them more likely to stay with us. But then we discovered that some franchisors were doing really well, had really happy franchisees. They weren't even doing these business reviews. What they were doing is they were ringing the franchisee regularly. We call that a proactive call. And we found that there was a remarkable correlation between how often the franchisor rings the franchisee and how happy they are, and how much they enjoy the business, and how likely they are to stay with us long term.
So in effect, you've been providing like a mentorship, like proactive mentorship for a long, long time, even before, let's say, this mental health was right out in the issue. You're almost ahead of it, even though we didn't call it that. But the proactive contact is a form of that sort of mentorship, that regular checking and guidance. Not just about business, but about life as well.
Look, it's good human decency. It's also very good business to look after the people that you're with.
And I know also there's a support hotline for franchisees as well to call, which I guess gets used a bit. And you've also done some events like Beyond Blue and stuff. You've done some mowing for charity and stuff like this.
We've been involved with Beyond Blue for many years because it's the single cause that's dearest to our heart. See, gyms is very personal. Every one of our franchisees has my direct phone number and email address, so I tend to know about things. I also ring franchisees quite often. Like every Sunday night, I'll ring franchisees getting key anniversaries. I'll ring them. I have a chat to them. So I know what's going on, and you feel this. One of the biggest impetus that ever happened to change all this, though, was what happened in Western Australia a few years back. Well, one of our franchisees in the mowing division basically went crazy. He killed his 3 little girls and his wife and then his mother-in-law. And it was really, really, really shocking, really disturbing. Now, it wasn't actually his business. He actually said that his business was fine. It was a positive thing. He had some inner demons. But it was very, very upsetting to everybody involved. I went across to Perth to speak to the franchisees there, and we've got quite a few franchisees in the state. Just about most of them, the great majority of them, were actually there at a meeting which we had in a golf club. And I said to these guys that everybody was very emotional. And bear in mind, most of us didn't know this guy personally, but he was one of us. So it was a very emotional meeting, and I said to them, people, what can we do to try and reduce the chance of this horrifying thing ever happening again? And they come up with quite a few really, really good ideas. One of them was that it was important to have access to phone numbers for help. So what we did, as soon as I went back, we organised it. We actually got fridge magnet, a big fridge magnet done with all the emergency phone numbers, all different kinds of phone numbers that they can call if they stick it on the fridge. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. Another thing they suggested, which was is that franchisors should have mental health training to be able to perhaps see this. So we've actually instituted a plan where all new franchisors now do a mental health training course, which I've done myself, and it's really good. Not that we're going to be psychologists or anything, but to understand the symptoms and understand what you can do and who you can refer people to. That was another thing that came out of it. And the other thing too, somebody actually put up their hand and they said, what if there was a franchisee who was available to help as advice on the phone? Not the franchisor, not a psychologist, but a franchisee who just understood what they're going through and who could speak confidentially. And I said, well, look, that's a lot to ask for somebody to take on that kind of role. And because it would be just time, which you wouldn't get paid for, and it would be, a difficult thing to do. And I said, but who would volunteer for things like that? And then something happened that really moved me. Most of the people in that room put up their hands because they were just so concerned about each other. And that was a very moving experience. And we've set that up now. We've got in every state and in New Zealand, we've got volunteers who are names listed through the franchisee website online that you can call somebody.
Yeah.